with the cats of late. You know, we've been following a lot of tracks. We've been, I think the last 3 drives between Scott and I, we've been following tracks to no avail, and most of the tracks that we've been following have been leading off of our properties or off of our traversing areas, and we hear about how the cats are found out of our area, but we are not able to get to see them. So I'm not giving up on cats entirely. I think we're going to concentrate on anything else that we can find. Well, we try, even when we're not finding, when we're even still tracking the cats. But I'd like to see if I can follow up on some of these elephant tracks, and I'm going to try and spend as much time as I can here on Arathusa this afternoon. We're already well into Arathusa. It'll be very interesting to hear from any of you who are zoomies at the moment, who are operating the cameras either at Gowrie Dam or at Arathusa Waterhole, to let us know if you've seen anything during the day, and that'll help us find them. And other than that, let's hope that we're going to find something. Hop aboard. Let's go and amble through this wonderful piece of African bushveld. Wednesday afternoon. Let's see what we can find. Find what we can see. I don't think I can get to Arathusa Dam just yet, if there is something there, because there are likely to still be guests in the camp. They only leave, I think, around 3:30 or 4 even. I'm not too sure what time their game starts out. Lovely warm afternoon. It's probably in the late 20s, maybe 28, 29 degrees Celsius. Probably low 80s. Not sure, somewhere around there. Very comfortable, not oppressively hot, comfortably warm. And I'm now driving on a boundary between Arathusa and its neighbouring lodge. Be the northwesternmost boundary of Arathusa. And I have to be honest, I haven't actually driven up this way much at all in the past. Tracks, let's see, there's some buffalo tracks, but no elephant tracks as yet. Go the opposite direction, probably back to Red Dam or something. Being a fairly hot afternoon, I don't expect there's going to be too much moving around. The elephant might still be feeding. Buffalo are probably going to be resting up either at a dam or waterhole or a mud wallow or thereabouts. Chewing the cud. Cats will be flat if there are any cats around. In the shade of a tree. As far as I know, most of the cats are off of our traversing area at the moment. Onto Arathusa for short periods of time, but I think this afternoon I'm going to maybe exhaust as many of the roads as I can, especially some of the roads that I never got to see over the last couple of months, mostly because we didn't really have great signal on those roads or in those areas. Here's some elephant tracks crossing. Maybe we'll get up a bit of luck this afternoon. Take the afternoon without having to look into the sunshine. There's a tracks of a bull at least, or maybe even two. Was a giraffe track you just saw? No, that was the buffalo tracks I was talking about. We had some buffalo tracks just coming towards us and then heading in the opposite direction, but we didn't see we had come from that direction. I expect that maybe they made their way down towards either Red Dam, perhaps there are fresh elephant dung from the ellies that are tracks that I'm trying to follow. The giraffe track is a lot more elongated than the buffalo track. Buffalo track is more or less round, very much like a cow, but a giraffe's hoof is very much elongated. I will show you a giraffe track if I can, probably longer than my hand. Female giraffe might be the length of my hand. Big bull will be... Oh, this is interesting. Come here. Something just flew into the vehicle. It's a bug. It's an assassin bug, and it's possibly going to fly away as soon as I open my hand. Come here, child. On my glove. Come. Just don't assassinate me. Very pretty, beautiful, black, red, and white. Did you get to see it at least?
For 2 seconds.
For 2 seconds. Not even. 0.2 of a second. It was a very elaborate assassin bug, and it has those markings for a reason. When you look at nature, when you look at things in nature, anything that has a combination of black and red and white and yellow and orange, those warning colors, then you know there's something wrong, or it can be dangerous, or it's poisonous. Not venomous, poisonous, I mean to ingest. And look at the monarch butterflies, they have those colors. It's called aposematic coloring. And the assassin bug is rather dangerous. This particular assassin bug, I'm not too sure what it preys on. I'll see if I can find a picture in the book. Maybe later when we cross over to Scott and I've got a little bit of time to page through my book. I've got my little library with me, by the way. So anything you want to know, you can always send us questions at wildearth.tv. That's our email address. Questions at wildearth.tv. That's all lowercase, and it's wildearth.tv. If you need to tweet, if you're on Twitter, you can send us a tweet to #SafariLive, and that will also get to me. But I'm going to look for that. I'm not too sure what they prey on. I've seen similar assassin bugs actually preying on millipedes, and there are not very many things that'll eat millipedes because millipedes produce their own type of poison, almost like a cyanide based poison, and that renders them pretty much inedible or unpalatable to most things, although there are a few creatures that do eat them, and one of them is a very specialized assassin bug that does. Now the bugs, different to all the other insects in that the bugs don't have biting mouth parts, they don't have these chewing mandibles, they've got a straw for a mouth. Very different to the flies, very different to the beetles, very different to, well, all other insects, except I can't even think of anything that has a mouth part like a bug. I know that in the rest of the world a lot of people call everything a bug, but actually with the insects, the one thing that makes a bug is that it has a very pointy straw-like mouth part, and it sucks either juices from plants or it sucks juices from other creatures like other insects or other arthropods. And there is one very specific bug that feeds on millipedes. Encounter with the insects flying into my head. And last station, that was the wrong channel. I'm following up on these elephant tracks. They are walking down this road in our direction, and I'm hoping that we're going to find something. And in the meantime, never mind. I was going to cross over to Scott, but I think Scott's out of his vehicle at the moment. I think he must be tracking something, so we're going to stay. There's a duiker running away. Unfortunately, that's what happens with duiker. Duiker is a small antelope, but it's the smallest, one of the smallest antelopes. A little bit bigger than a steenbok. I can see it through here. I don't know if VM's going to get a view through it. On this off again. See, as soon as we look at it, as soon as we stop and take notice of it, it gets so frightened that it's going to be hunted. Because that's what happens. You know, a leopard or a lion or something will stop and look at it and then chase it. It doesn't know that we're not going to chase it. No matter how many years we go by with vehicle activity here and the other animals become accustomed to the vehicles, there's some like the small duiker and steenbok that just can never get used to them. You stop and look at them and they run away. Okay, so Scott's doing some tracking at the moment. We'll stay with me. We're going to see if we can find these elephants have left the road. My guess is they've cut through this bush and they've gone closer towards Arathusa dam. We'll make our way there shortly. For the time being, we're going to zigzag. We're going to jigger here and jigger there, and that's what gives this vehicle its name, the jigger. Because of all the turning and jiggering that we do. Would be that it would start on the outside of the tree and it will only, I mean fungi in general only really attack dead wood. That's the function of fungi in nature, to break down dead and rotting plant material. And one of the things that breaks down dead trees is bracket fungi. We find it on knobthorns, we find it on various different trees, but we also find different species on different trees, and sometimes the colors of the fungi can determine which species it is, apart from the fact that of course it is species specific. So I'm going to look very carefully, because sometimes one might find it even on the living knobthorn, but it's feeding on the dead bark of the knobthorn. But I will keep my eyes open. I wonder if we should maybe do that drainage. Maybe we'll do a loop around and then come back to that drainage line. Because on a hot day like today, the drainage lines are likely to be elephant havens because there are bigger trees, it's denser vegetation, it's cooler. Longer grasses, more moisture, shallower water table. A bunch of reasons why elephant might be on the edges of the drainage line. This beautiful mulberry tree. We don't see many of them. It's known as a milkberry. Not very palatable, but very distinctive leaf. If you get a close-up of the leaf, if Liam can show you, there's a yellow midrib to the leaf that is very distinctive. But they also have a very distinctive pattern of growth. A very dense tree, and obviously a very, very old tree. In fact, quite enchanting. I love these trees. Not really much use in any sense, because they grow so erratically. They don't grow straight. So the wood is, although it might be quite hard, the wood isn't really good for anything. Steady, but hopefully it is. And if not, I'm going to hand you over to Scott in a bit. I'll leave it up to final control to do that. But it sounds like while we're moving, we might be on the edge of our signal range. I might be just edging out of a good signal area, in which case we'll head over to Scott and spend some time with him. This time of the year, the male is being a little bit obnoxious, asserting his role as the dominant ram, and sometimes for no reason just shouting at the females and chasing them, just to remain in control. Interesting, you can see that little ram just on the other side of that female, that little one that's walking away now, and he must be a really late lamb because spawns are so tiny. Probably only born in January or so. Still allowed to be with the group because he's not mature enough to join the bachelor herds. He will still stay with the group until next rutting season. Next year he will be ousted if he lasts that long, if he doesn't fall prey to the likes of leopard, wild dog, cheetah or lion or hyena or a python or a crocodile or a leopard. Something. Anyways, we're going to cross over to Scott. I'm going to carry on looking for these ellies. I'm going to do a little bit of a loop, and then I'm going to head down that drainage line where their tracks are headed and see if I can find them. So I'll see you in a little while, and enjoy your time back on Djuma. I think Scott is still on Djuma while we're here at Arathusa. And I'll see you a little bit later.
And welcome on board with myself, Scott Dyson, and Brian Joubert on camera. We are busy scouting the northeastern part of Djuma in the hope of finding anything really, but we did have a report of some female leopard tracks in this area this morning, so we thought we'd come and mosey through the area and see if there's any signs or signals that the bush can help us with in terms of leading us closer to the elusive leopard. Now, it's a hot afternoon. It's about 29 degrees Celsius, which is about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So a lot of the animals will still be relaxing in the shade, popping into the water holes for drinking opportunities. Now, we did head past Buffelshoek Dam just a few minutes ago, and it was only a hippo and a heron there. They seem to be the local animals that we see there over the last few weeks. Obviously, a lot of other animals come and go when we are not there. Brian and I thought about possibly doing a stakeout at the dam, but the flies were overwhelming us there, so we decided against it. We thought we should maybe try our patience somewhere else. And not too much to report so far. It's strange how animal numbers come and go, and I guess it's just a lot of it's luck. Ooh. This looks like a little bit of luck right here. I'm not entirely sure what this is yet. Oh, cute. It's a tiny, tiny newborn nyala. And I can't help but wonder why there's such a small nyala at this time of the year. The majority of nyala would have given birth in November and December, when most of the antelope do birth, for the reason that it's the most plentiful time of the year. So it's the best time to raise young for herbivores. There's a lot of rain and a lot of food to feed on. It's not uncommon for antelope to leave young nestled in little thickets like this. But then again, it's also not unheard of for leopard to catch the mothers of young antelope like this and leave the youngsters stranded. That happened with Karula. Within 24 hours of Karula losing her cubs at the end of last year, or her last cub from her most recent litter, she lost her cubs to hyena. Within 24 hours she had killed an adult female impala, and we returned to that sighting in the afternoon after establishing the sighting in the morning. And then we noticed a very young impala lamb calling for its mother, which was hoisted up in a tambuti tree. And when Karula heard the young lamb calling its mother, she quickly rushed in and dispatched the lamb as well, which is probably the best thing that could have happened to it. Now, I'm guessing, I'm not saying that's the case now, it's certainly not the case, but it does have me poking my head around, looking up in marula trees for any sign of a kill. I'm going to try and creep forward a little bit. I don't think this antelope's going to run off. It's going to rely on its camouflage, so we should be able to get a little bit closer. Oh, this is so cute. It's tiny. Oops. Well, they're supposed to use their camouflage to hide, and that's technically what they do, and sit and wait, but this one decided against it. Now, like I said, I am surprised that it's alone, and I wonder what the situation could be. I'm going to leave it alone though. We don't want to distress it too much. And we may never know the full story behind why this young lamb is alone. But like I said, it's not uncommon for antelope to leave newly born calves lying up in thickets. So I'm hoping that's what's the case today. Said that though, there was reports of a female leopard moving through this area this morning, so who knows what may have happened. You may be asking yourself the question, why wouldn't a leopard rather catch a young lamb, which may be easier to catch than an adult? And yes, I guess most of the time that would be the case, but each hunting scenario is different. And just like Karula catching and killing an adult female impala, and not the lamb, just goes to show that it can happen. Well, Brian and I continue snooping about, looking for anything of interest. It sounds like Marc has stumbled upon a very large herd of animals that sounds like you will all enjoy. So we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Hi everyone. Well, I haven't really gone very far from this small herd of impala, and there was an interesting episode that has just happened. And it's quite strange how sometimes the impala females they use take any opportunity that they can to run away from the ram, because sometimes they just get so dogged by the ram that they kind of think the grass is greener on the other side. Unfortunately, I think for them, no matter which ram it is, it's going to behave the same way. But it's just a time of the year when they have no choice but to comply and to fall in with the regime, as it were. I don't think you're going to find any... and there he goes. There were two females. There were two females that, as we came by, they took a chance and tried to run off. And he went off. He's still gone off after them. And, well, the rest of the females are starting to head off in the same direction, trying to follow the two females that ran off. You know, ordinarily for most of the year, the females have their own lives. They're not governed by the ram. They're not pushed around by the rams. They, in fact, the bachelor herds tend to break up, and for a while, just before lambing season, you'll find mixed herds. And it's just this short period of the impala rut that these poor females are forced into tight-knit groups, and if they try and wander even 10 feet away from the group, the male gets really upset and herds them closer. And so there were two females, no doubt part of a larger group, because this is a very, very small group, and obviously not a very strong ram or a very desirable ram, because they seem to want to break free and go back to some other group. Unfortunately, moving off into the bush, so we're not going to see the outcome of it all. But it looks like he might have lost control of at least two of his females who have gone back to their boyfriend in another herd, maybe. Interesting stuff this time of the year with regards to impala. Most of the year, we see impala so frequently, and we sometimes very seldom stop and actually observe what they're doing. And right now, with the rutting season on, it's quite interesting to see the impala in action. Scott found a brand new baby nyala. That was wonderful. Good news. Little lamb being born into a really rough world with lots of lion, lots of leopards, wild dog, eagles, jackals, caracal, pythons, a whole host of predators that it's going to have to learn about before it reaches adulthood. Learn how to evade. I mean, for the most part, it's not a dangerous world. I mean, every day you look at just the very fact that a baby nyala can be born and it can wander around shortly after birth should tell you that it's not as much of a kill or be killed world as it might be made out to be on TV. It's not constant killing and constant fear for your life. And as you've also seen with us trying to find predators, sometimes there just aren't any predators around. And this is our senses as humans that we're detecting this. Can you imagine the senses of the animals that are so fine-tuned into the energy of everything? They know where the predators are, well, to a large degree. And they know when it's safe, they know when they need to be nervous. But still, there are times when it is very tense for them, and those moments are fleeting when a predator strikes and one of them gets taken. But I think for the most part they can live a fairly happy and really normal life without constantly having to look over their shoulder. North Carolina sent us an update this morning that there was lion herd roaring on Arathusa camera early during the night. Do we know which lion? Have we had an update? Do we know which lion they are? And any update? Well, we followed the tracks actually, Gene. I'm surprised that nobody found them because they actually crossed the dam wall sometime early this morning, probably in the early hours of the morning. I'm hoping that maybe somebody saw them if there was a zoomie, because we found their tracks on this side of the dam. They crossed over the dam wall and went south of Arathusa Lodge, and it looked like they've gone even further south of Shirley's property. The one thing I did hear was that the two Styx males were wandering around, and that they were on probably known as Shirley's, which is just south of Arathusa. It's an area we can't go. Basically from the southern tip of the airstrip further south, that is Shirley's, and somewhere down there were the two Styx young males. But unfortunately, no other update. At this stage, there's a digitization, or there's a change in the radio dynamics in this part of the Sabi Sand. Everybody's changing from analog to digital, and with the new digital radios coming in, there are still some things to tweak. Just by the sounds of things, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just guessing that there are some things to be tweaked, and so at this stage we don't have radio communications with Arathusa, and so I'm not too sure. I'm hoping that by spending time on Arathusa this afternoon, I'm hoping that we're actually able to bump into someone from Arathusa that will give us an update, and we can hear firsthand what might or might not have been found with regards to a lot of the tracks that we were finding this morning. Down to the dam in a short while. I've got to leave it till about 4 o'clock. I don't know what time we're at now. It's probably only about 3:30. Probably about another half hour or so. I'm hoping to get to Arathusa Dam. We're a lot further to the west of Arathusa Dam at the moment, the northwest. And I'm doing a few loops in this area looking for some elephants, because the game drive vehicles from Arathusa only leave around about 4 o'clock, and I can't really go wandering around in front of the dam while they're having their afternoon refreshments. Normally afternoon tea is quite an elaborate affair at the lodge. If you ever get a chance, you should try cakes and quiches and oh gosh, it's such a, it's like you don't eat enough at mealtime. They still put some wonderful food together for the 3 o'clock afternoon tea before all the guests go out in the afternoon, and they'll be heading out I guess at about 4 o'clock, at which time we can make our way through the dam, and hopefully we're going to time it when all the animals approach the dam. Well, not all, but at least some. So I hope that we'll be able to try that later. Scott, while I head down into this drainage line, we're going to follow this drainage line, see if the elephants are around, or see if I can find some tracks of theirs. And I will see you in a few minutes, no doubt. Bye for now. Yeah, elephant tracks now. They're old.
Good afternoon and welcome back. So, you may be wondering why I'm off the vehicle. There is a little bit of good news. There have been some leopard tracks that look like a young male that have been following the road behind us up to this T-junction. Now, I've just been searching to try and establish whether the leopard went left or right, but it could well have just continued straight. That may happen. Leopards will, and lions, and a lot of the animals will use the roads as major highways, but of course they do also spend a lot of time in the bush in between, and that's what makes finding them tricky. So I haven't had any luck establishing which direction the track's going, but I've got a feeling he's going to head down to the right. So that is what we'll do. We'll veer down this road to the right and check a little bit further down there to see if any tracks pop out. Failing that, we'll turn around and loop around this area and see if we get lucky. The tracks look like they're from last night. There's a few daytime animals whose tracks have passed on top of his. But that's not to say that he's very far away, because for all we know, the leopard may have made a kill anywhere in this area and could spend the next 3 days very close to tracks that may appear a little bit old. So I'm just going to drive along here, checking carefully. There's another road to the left here we could have taken. This spot over here would have definitely told me whether he did pass down here. It's a very sandy road. I can see vehicles have driven here, meaning they could have driven over the tracks, but I'm guessing he would have continued in his general direction of movement, which has been south. He's going to take us down this little track. It sounds like the impala are the stars of the show at the moment. They're in full swing rutting, which has provided us with some great action, and just the sheer numbers of them at the moment that you can get in a concentrated area makes for beautiful, beautiful viewing. Deb in Ohio, and thanks very much for sending your question through. Deb has asked whether it's strange for us to have come across such a young nyala at this time of the year, and it certainly is, Deb. I did touch on it briefly, but usually a lot of antelope and herbivores will give birth during the first rains, which is in October and November. But that little individual definitely did seem to have been born at an obscure time, but that's the wonderful thing about nature, is that you do get these surprises along the way, and nothing's cast in stone out here.
It is still there.
What have you seen there, Brian? Hey, a duiker? What have you seen?
Steenbok.
Oh, a steenbok. I was looking at a bird's nest.
Yeah, it's still there.
Well, Brian spotted a steenbok. So I need to reverse a little bit more.
A little bit forward.
Okay. Which is a very small antelope. I was looking at an old bird's nest. So we thought we were onto the same thing, but two completely...
Oh, it's gone now.
Okay, well, not to worry. The bird's nest that I was checking out, I'll show you. It looks like the old nest of a blue waxbill. It's just in this tree right here, and I was hoping to find a vespered wasp nest underneath it. Quite often you find that blue waxbills will use vespered wasps as their own private security systems and build their nest just on top of these very aggressive wasps, so that any intruders have to get past the wasps before they get to the little chicks or the eggs. It wasn't the case this time. On board with us. Pamela's interested to know how cold will it get in the winter. It'll get close to 0 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it very seldom frosts here and never snows. But the wind chill factor in these open vehicles, it can get quite cold. Let's see if we can get close to the spider web and see what's going on in here. There can often be a hive of activity. I can't see any spiders personally. They're possibly all inside the web, and that's where they hide out. They're community nest spiders, so it's a whole host of spiders that all team up and live together. If something does get caught on the sticky web, they will come out of the little holes and apartments that they live in and come and gobble up whatever has been caught in the web. I can see an old beetle over there that Brian's showing you, but like I said, they're probably all hiding out within the web now. But if something was to land on the outside, they would come scurrying out to collect it. Interesting, not many spiders live in this fashion. They usually make their own webs individually, but these individuals have realized the benefits of living in a community. They can divide the work amongst themselves. Tiny little brown spiders that live in that web, and I'm sure we'll have to find some more to show you. Steenbok just darted off in front of us there. I'm not sure if you would have seen that, but there was a little steenbok there. Everything seems to be avoiding us this afternoon except for the flies. The flies are giving us a lot of attention, so at least we're popular amongst one of the animals out here today. Sign of these leopard tracks. Which I'm not going to get too worked up about, because it's kind of been the general way it's been going for us at the moment. We haven't been having a huge success in tracking and finding the animals, and maybe it's because we've been trying too hard, forcing the subject, who knows. Slowly approaching Twin Dams, and I'm looking forward to getting there. Like I said, it is a hot afternoon, and with a little bit of luck there'll be something going on at the dam, whether it's birds drinking or buffaloes wallowing. of a nyala or impala coming down to drink. All those things could happen. Maybe some elephant. There haven't been many elephants on the property, any sign of elephants on the property for the last few days, other than actually, interestingly enough, just a herd of 3 elephants. It's abnormal to have such a small herd. It looks like a mother and 2 of her calves. She's very easy to tell apart because she's missing the end of her trunk. And it's also quite easy to notice them because her youngest son is a little bit of a spoil sport and complains very loudly when he doesn't get allowed to drink any milk. So we've been hearing him squealing in disgust as his mother prevents him from drinking. Texas, and welcome on board this sunset safari. Marianne's interested to know if there's any venomous snakes in spiders in Africa, and especially in this part of Africa, and there certainly are. One of the most dangerous that I know of is the violin spider that you do get in these parts, but not very commonly. You also get brown widow spiders, and some of the sac spiders can also be highly venomous, but thankfully they usually don't cause too much trouble for us as humans. And the biggest, most common spiders we see, probably the golden orb web spiders, and they are harmless to us as humans. They cannot cause any harm to us, which is a bonus because they are big, and we do sometimes get tangled up in their webs, either when we're off-roading or even when we're walking. If you're walking in the wrong angle, you can't see the web until you are inside it. And it would certainly be a lot more nerve-wracking if they were venomous. And those little community nest spiders, they are also harmless to us, so nothing to worry about there. Oh, here's one of the prettier residents of the Sabi Sands. A beautiful lilac-breasted roller. And I certainly wouldn't mind being up on top of that marula tree, scanning the area. It may make our lives a little bit easier in finding animals. We need to maybe get some birds onto our team to help us out. But while you enjoy looking at this pretty bird, Charles has just sent through a question wondering, how big is the Sabi Sands? Good question, Charles. It's 65,000 hectares, which is privately owned land, of which we currently traverse probably about 1,500 to 2,000 hectares. So we are only driving around a very small portion of the Sabi Sands, and even though it is only 65,000 hectares, it is part of a 3 million hectare reserve, which is the Kruger National Park. So there's no fences between us and the Kruger, which is wonderful because it creates a almost perfectly natural environment where animals can move freely in search of food, water, mating. Basically, they've got free rein, which is so important for wild animals. They need space in order to be able to live out their lives without human intervention and human management. That's not to say that the smaller reserves that are fenced in are not good, but in an ideal world, animals would all have huge areas to roam like this, because in the smaller reserves it is necessary for human management of animals' populations, of their genetics, bringing in new males, taking out old males. So it's not a perfectly real scenario, but it is still a refuge for wild animals to exist in these smaller parks. So I must stress that there's nothing wrong with them, and I consider it a privilege for us to be driving around such a wonderful ecosystem like this. And I often think back to the founders of these national parks and national parks around the world, because it was often just a few people with this idea, and it took a lot of hard work and convincing to keep these places wild, and aren't we so lucky that they did? Just joined or are joining for the first time, a huge welcome. And just to let you know, this is a live safari, so nothing is pre-planned or pre-recorded. What you see is what you get, and what you're about to see here is a very pretty bird. Hopefully it's not going to flutter off. Oh, there we go. Brian's so quick on the camera that we've got nothing to worry about. This is called a crested barbet, and as I was saying just before we caught sight of this pretty bird, this is a live safari, and it's also an interactive safari. You may have noticed we've been answering a few questions, and if you would also like to have your question answered, it's quite simple. You just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv, and Tara, who's in the director's chair this afternoon, will do her best to get your questions through to us. These are really hardcore birds. I've often seen them in birding parties where they may be mobbing snakes or other birds of prey, and it's often the crested barbets that are at the forefront of the charge, attacking whatever it may be that they're uncomfortable with. But they're predominantly fruit eaters, despite their aggressive nature when they do come up against snakes or small birds of prey that they may try and chase off. They do nest in cavities in trees, and I'm wondering if there's not a cavity in this tree that it could be nesting, and it's unlikely though, because as far as I'm aware the crested barbets will mate in summer. But I'm just going to double check that. Doesn't say in my book, but most of the birds will nest in summer. However, there are some, especially those who nest in cavities, that will decide to rather nest in the winter months because there's less competition for nesting sites. Well, as you can hear, it's a very calm and still afternoon. This morning when we headed out, the bird chorus was incredible. There was so much noise, and we got the feeling that we were heading out into a menagerie of animals, or a large amount of animals rather, and that appears to have not necessarily been the case, despite the very loud and exciting morning start. Things have got progressively quieter throughout the day, but maybe that's going to change now that it's cooling down and we're heading into the evening. That's my guess. We've just stumbled upon a family of a nyala. And these are the same antelope that we saw a tiny calf of earlier. And interestingly enough, there's also one or two small calves amongst this herd, but nowhere nearly as small. That's how big they should be, the ones that were born a few months ago. But the other one was not even half that size. They are such pretty antelope, the nyala. And the females, you'll notice, have got a very rusty orange coloured coat, which differs from one of their cousins that you could confuse them with, the kudu. The kudu is far bigger and lacks this rusty orange coloration. I must say a very, very big thank you to Verreaux on Twitter. And Verreaux was kind enough to research the nyala's calving habits, and it's believed that nyala will give birth and then, like I said, stash their young away, but Verreaux says for up to 3 weeks they will continue to hide the youngsters and go back to nurse them during that 3-week period, and only thereafter will the mother and the calf reunite with the herd. So thank you very, very much, Verreaux, for providing us with that information, and therefore we could assume that that little lamb was under 3 weeks of age, which is great. Looks like they're all going to cross the road in front of us, so we're not going to go anywhere just yet. This is a young male. You can see that quite clearly because his horns are sticking out, but you'll also notice he has a white chevron between the eyes, which the females lack. So even the very young males, before their horns have protruded, you can distinguish apart from the females. And this is the last one. Wonderful. afternoon, Gert, in the Netherlands. And thanks so much for sending your question through. Gert is interested to know whether the Drakensberg Mountains, which are directly in front of us about 30 or 40 miles away, we just can't see them from here, whether before there were fences, would animals have roamed and migrated over those mountains to different areas? And they certainly would have, especially the large animals like elephants. Elephants used to move huge distances from South Africa into Mozambique all the way up to Kenya. But that sadly has changed, and it would be wonderful if we could just take out all the humans from Africa and watch how the animals spread from the few little pockets and reserves that are left today, because they would spread fairly quickly and make the most of the freedom to roam and head out to feed on different areas and explore different places. And yeah, there's no doubts about it that animals would have moved quite easily from here to there, up and over those mountains. It would have been an incredible country to explore, as would all of them, all of the countries, I guess, before the humans came along and ruined everything. We are going into a bad signal area, so you may get a few blotchy images. So before that happens, let's link across to Marc and we will see you later.
Hi everybody, welcome to a really special part of Arathusa, and we're heading to the top of a ridge that has very deep sandy soils and is dominated, you can see all around us, dominated by marula trees. It's an area that we've seen quite a number of things in the past, the likes of Tingana and Shadow and her cub and Ellie's. Just listening to the radio quickly. What's interesting is that there was a fire here. You can actually see there's a tree here that's been burned. I'll catch up with the radio later. But there was a fire here, sort of late spring, I think it was. A very bad fire, and you can see not only branch like, or rather tree like that has been burnt, but I can show you also most of the trees that you see, the upper branches are all dead because the heat would have seared the leaves, and actually there was being a quite an intense fire would actually kill the top of some of these trees, but almost all of them are recoppicing down at the base, and there's new growth coming at the base. So although the fire might have destroyed the crowns of the trees, these bush willows, trying to see what else there is, mostly bush willows at the bases of these marula trees. The marula trees were unharmed, but all of them, roundleaf teak as well. Here's an ash pile from a dead log. This would have been a log that would have smoldered for, I guess, a few days, becoming such an intense heat because it's such a dense wood that the coals would be so hot that it turns to white ash. Funnily enough, you'll find that things like starlings and francolins will come and do an ash bath. They'll come and bathe in the ash. I see that at home because the very fine powder helps. It's almost like a talcum powder. It helps to get rid of parasites. It becomes abrasive to parasites, to things like feather mites and fleas and the kind of things that are likely to be hassling a bird. But other than that, not really seeing anything that moves. A couple of impala earlier, and I'm going to stop and show you shortly. I'll stop and show you the sassenbug. A Hilda in Belgium. Hilda is asking about black red star birds. I'm not too sure what that means, Hilda. I don't know any bird called that. But Here's the long-tailed or magpie shrike. But she has some of them nesting in a roof, wanting to know if we have any here. Hilda, I'd like to know what the real name is of those birds, because I don't recognize the name. Red starts? Maybe red starts, black red starts. Red starts, yeah, I thought so. I thought he was saying red star, but it's the red starts. We don't get red starts in Africa at all. Well, this part of Africa, I don't even know what. I know that I've seen the name of red start. I have seen. I don't know whether it was when I bought a book of birds of Europe when I was there 15, 16 years ago. Spent time in Vienna and a bit of Germany. I don't know whether it was red starts I saw in that book or where it is, but in my mind, so Hilda, I'm sorry, but you were quite correct. It is called a red start, and I'm just not sure where I know the name from, but we don't have red starts here, that's for sure. I can do is have a look at sort of distribution of red starts, but I know in my mind I've seen red starts. I've seen them in books. I know what you're talking about now. I was thinking it was a star, not a start. Red start is the bird, and this is the black red start I think you're talking about. It'd be interesting to find out its distribution, because I know it doesn't come down into Africa. But I can't remember if we had them in East Africa, and it would mean going home to find my East African bird book. Unfortunately, though, at the moment, and I'm trying to get onto Facebook, I'm trying to get onto social media, I don't have internet either at camp but during the day or even at night back in Manuleti. I've been trying to get through on my phone, but it is so slow. It's like I can like one page and that's an hour's worth and all my bandwidth worth of just trying to do things on my phone. And hopefully we can maybe improve on that at some point, but at the moment it's very difficult for me to be online and to access social media, or even to access Google for that matter, for me to learn things. I haven't been able to get to emails, I haven't been able to respond to Facebook, anything on Facebook other than the odd like. And of course it's quite frustrating, because I know how important that all is to a lot of you. Contractors, electrical. Hello, gentlemen. And no, I'm not voting anymore. Fixing electrical connections, but okay. Well, while we're just south of Arathusa Lodge, looks like we're going to be going through a few contractors here who are working on the power lines and the power coming in. So just for the time being, I've opened up my book. Now I had a look for the particular assassin bug that we were looking at, and I believe that it would belong to this group of assassins known as the flower assassins. And of the flower assassins, there are at least 37 odd species of flower assassin bugs in South Africa, and that's just that type of assassin bug. That's not to mention all the different assassin bugs that you get. I mean, up here are the assassin bugs, the metallic assassins, and maybe the millipede assassin up at the top. These are very specific assassin bugs that can prey on things like millipedes. But the flower assassin, this would have been one of the flower assassins that flew into my hand, and I managed to actually hold it up for just a brief moment. A really pretty animal, but also, as you can see quite distinctly, the black, red, yellow or orange coloration that as a warning to potential predators. They can deliver a painful bite. They are known to. It does sort of create a bit of a numbness and stuff, and swelling, sometimes even nausea. And usually paste with bicarbonate is a good enough remedy for it. And they prey on a lot of different insects. I've actually seen them preying on bees, on flowers. That's why they're called flower assassins, because they actually sit on flowers and they wait for the likes of wasps, bees, ants, and the like to come to those flowers to feed on the nectar or the pollen. And then they assassinate them. Using that proboscis of theirs, they pierce their prey's thorax through the back. They stab them in the back, suck the juices out while it is alive. You know that Darwin is actually thought to have been killed by assassin boats, only because there's a parasite that lives in South America. There's an assassin boat that hosts a parasite that can cause, or it could perhaps back in Darwin's day, result in death. And it was an assassin bug that actually, he wrote about it, as far as I know, about how they used to pierce his tear ducts to get to the moisture in his tear ducts, and by doing so the parasite that lives within the assassin bug would then enter the bloodstream of the host, being Darwin himself. He wrote about having infestations of these bugs in his tent in South America when he was doing all his coleoptera stuff, all his beetle and hammers and stuff. Well, Arathusa Dam. Said she saw some, thanks Barbara for the news, by the way. Barbara said she saw some warthog here at Arathusa, at this waterhole. Oh gosh, there was a kingfisher sitting on this log and I didn't see, and they frightened him away. Hi kingfisher. I'm sorry kingfisher, I didn't see you. So this Ludwiger with the water starting to recede. Oh, a big yawn from it though. This Ludwigia, which is this floating plant, seems to be really taking hold. There's a lot of work going on at the lodge. I'm starting to think that maybe there aren't any guests here, and that's why there aren't any vehicles out. And that's why there's no news about what's going on today. My 2 cents worth in hippo. Except I don't really know hippo too well, so that male's starting to display, causing waves. I don't understand hippo too much, so I don't really know what they were saying. But I think we need to move because there's a lot of noise. There's clearly a lot of work going on at the lodge, and that might keep some things away. Might not. Northwest Africa, Europe, Asian. Gosh, I can't remember all of that. But yes, thank you for all the info on the red starts, by the way. Some saying Northwest Africa is most, generally the breeding ground, Northwest Africa. Someone is saying that it's only in North America. As I say, I value your information and I value your input. I need to just go and have a look at my own books, and I need to try and trace back where I know the red start from. But yes, definitely nothing down here in South Africa that even resembles a red start. Supposedly old world flycatchers, I think. To continue my quest here on Arathusa for this afternoon, and maybe make our way towards the airstrip eventually, and then back to Djuma. But it looks like Arathusa is about as quiet as Djuma is at the moment, so we'll head over to Djuma, and I'll hand you over to Scott for a little bit. I'll be seeing you in a short while. Hopefully I can find something.
Welcome back, everyone, and good to hear that Marc's very far away from us at the moment, and that's not because we don't like Marc, it's simply because we have split up and are trying to cover as much ground as possible. So he's very far to our west on Arathusa, and we are actually on our furthest eastern boundary. So we will hopefully, between the two of us, be able to come across something by splitting up like this. And Arathusa is such a beautiful property with that big dam where I believe you've just been spending some time with Marc. Not too much to report from Brian and myself. We're still just searching about, had my binoculars out there, trying to search up that eastern boundary of ours for any signs of life. There didn't appear to be anything there. It's a great time of year to use the binoculars because we can see a lot further now in the winter than we can in the summer, because the vegetation thins very drastically, which certainly aids in us being able to spot animals. And one of my favorite things to spot is a leopard up a tree, or even just a kill dangling in the tree, because you can spot them from so far away, because all you need to see is that little silhouette. It might not happen this afternoon, but in the coming months, one of the presenters is going to certainly come across a long-distance sighting of a leopard up in a marula tree. I can assure you of it, and I'm looking forward to that day for all of us. It doesn't matter who the presenter is that finds it, because it really is awesome seeing something from so far away and then making your way in there. interesting question through from Gemelin in Oklahoma.
Just update on the...
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for sending your question through. Gemelin would like to know if I've ever... Don't worry about the flies, I'm just going to let them make themselves at home here rather than chasing them away. There's no point because they keep coming back. And Gemelin would like to know if, whilst living in the bush, have I ever seen a lion or a leopard as I've opened my front door to start my day? And I have. So it's a lot of fun. I'm not going to chase the flies away. That's my goal. It's a little bit tricky. Brian's giggling in the background here.
See how many I can count.
And yes, I have come across leopard and cubs in the southern Sabi Sands. Also, a lion killed a waterbuck outside a strip of about 6 rooms, of which I lived in one. They were kind of in between, they were in the middle of a strip of 6 semi-detached rooms, and what we did was we clapped our hands and chased them away. So it's no different to chasing away, dogs or people or anything that you don't want to be around. You just clap your hands and make a noise, and typically animals will move off. Especially animals know they're in a human space. The leopards and lion know they are coming into a human place, and therefore are more expectant of us bumping into them, more so than if we're walking on foot and we bump into them in the bush. So it does happen from time to time, but most of the time animals will avoid confrontation with us, and it just makes for a little bit of early morning excitement. Anyway, it sounds like Marc's found something interesting, so I'm just going to stay here with Brian and the flies, and we will see you a little bit later.
Probably one of the most majestic antelope is the big male, big bull waterbuck, and he is certainly a very healthy fella, this one. I had a couple of females. In fact, I can see the tail end of one. We'll try and move forward shortly to be able to see them a little bit better. But I was waiting to see if they would come out of the bushes. And excuse me. I was waiting for them to come out of the bushes, and then he appeared. Now, I'd like to try and move forward and get a better, clearer view of him. We also got this beautiful late afternoon light. But I'm worried that if I start up, he might move off. So I'm hoping that he might venture out into the open a bit more. One of the females has moved into the open, and a herd of impala that might be moving through the background of them. You can maybe get an idea of the size of a waterbuck compared to impala. Impala are medium-sized antelope. The impala might move behind these waterbuck. She's winking at you, everybody. Welcome to WildEarth. Chewing a Wrigley's with a heart-shaped nose. And not too fond of oxpeckers that want to come. Ah, there, the male. Sorry, the male's moved into the open now. And we can try and get a better view if I go forward a little bit. Now the other female coming out into the open as well. And just behind them, a small group of impala. The male impala is starting to come across the road in front of us, so he's probably going to start moving them on. And I'd like them to sort of to be in the same picture frame as the waterbuck, so you can see how much bigger the waterbuck is. And I can also challenge you, the viewer, to a quiz. Who is heavier, the kudu or the waterbuck? And I'm going to take part B of that question, and I'm going to say, who is taller, the bushbuck? No, sorry, the waterbuck or the kudu. Between the kudu, the two large antelope species that we have here, we're not forgetting the wildebeest, but I think if we, the wildebeest is kind of an antelope all in its own category. It's just so not antelope looking. They say that the wildebeest looks like it's been put together by a bunch of spare parts. There, the herd of impala coming fairly close to the waterbuck. I think if we just sit quietly, we might. But they're all going back to grazing now. They're starting to ignore us. I'd say maybe a bit bigger than the white-tailed deer. Oh, she's getting nasty. She wants to eat that grass. Such a magnificent bull. I don't know if you can hear that squeaking noise, which is actually a pair of parrots that are flying about. My wish has been granted, impala and waterbuck together. They're no doubt making their way to Arathusa Dam. And although we can hear the workmen at Arathusa, they're obviously fixing things there. We can hear the power tools. It's not really affecting the animals very much, as you can see. They're just getting on with their own thing. Superb light for photographing animals when you get this late afternoon light and you get the full glare of that late sunlight on an animal. The big bull has moved forward, so I'm going to move forward too. Maybe we'll get to see him with the females. See, she's looking this one. She's very interested in something down in the drainage line. You can see how attentive she is, ears pointing forward. She's probably signaling something with her tail, and perfect opportunity to actually look at that white ring around the rump, and you compare that to, say, the markings of other antelope. The reasoning is still the same. There's a whole visual communication that goes on with the tail and the background of the white, as it is with impala, with the black lines and the little bit of white that flashes in front of it. The facial markings, the rump marking, so many things that they can tell each other without having to actually make any noise. So a little window. There's the impala ram and the waterbuck bull through this tiny little gap in the trees. That's quite remarkable, actually. We could probably follow them, that people moving on that road that runs back towards Arathusa Dam. With the temperatures dropping now, lot of these animals have spent the day, the heat of the day, in relatively dense. And now that it's cooling down, they're going to be going back into the open. To know if the flicking of the tails is if it's a controlled action or if it's subconscious. It's very much controlled, and if we look at these impala, you can see they've also got very distinctive markings that allow them to see where and to what degree the white tail is being flashed. You'll also notice if we get a chance to see the ram, if he's going to chase another ram or if he's going to chase one of the females, he will actually curl his tail up and show all white. What he's doing now is he's actually standing over his midden. If we look at the ground at his feet, you can see it's littered with black pellets, and that's probably the center of his bowl, the center of his little territory where he is warding off all other rams, and he's keeping these females within his territory so that he can mate with them for this rutting season. The tails are starting to flatten. Off he goes. There's obviously someone walking where she shouldn't be walking, and he's just got to do that. That's what men and male impalas do. Okay, so we're getting some answers in. I can't see the waterbuck. And in Arizona, said Kathleen said kudu for both. Joanne in Arizona. Anthony, waterbuck is taller. Okay. I think Joanne in Arizona was the correct one. I've always thought as well that waterbuck are heavier and kudu are taller. Where? Kudu, Angelina, kudu are taller and more agile. Well, they definitely are more agile. Some vervet monkeys on the other side, but quite far off. Oops. And the Egyptian geese on the right. It's actually a communication. I mean, it's all very well that it brushes the flies away, but there is actually a message being sent every time an animal flicks its tail. And so there is some correlation between what's going on in the brain and what's going on with the tail, and what message is trying to be sent. Naomi. Well, they've all moved down to the bottom end of the dam and I can't get in there. So I'm going to have to leave them be and carry on. But Naomi in Pretoria. Nice to hear from you again, Naomi. And thanks for your question. I just saw a vehicle. How do antelope cope with stress? Having to constantly be on the lookout, constantly be aware of danger. I might have to just pause at this moment because I might just have to speak to someone. Craig. From Plains. Sort of built in with animals is that they are so tuned into the environment. They can hear an alarm call or a twig break. They are alert, and especially for those that are in a social situation, there is always going to be one that is looking out so that others can actually feed and relax and get things done. The very act of flicking their tails, and it all ties into the same thing. There's actually a means by which each individual within the herd pacifies those around them that everything is fine, it's safe to keep your head down. They don't have to constantly be taking a bite and looking for danger, that they can actually keep their heads down and they can feed. And out the corner of their eye, they can see this little flick of white against the tree. Head in the grass will look up to see why those tails are not flicking, and then the markings on the ears and the markings on the face will help an individual to see in which direction the others were, and they're looking around at 360 degrees and they don't see the danger, so they see that animals are actually looking in a particular direction. Gonna go, oh, broke a nail. Gonna go over to Scott and I'll chat to you in a little while.
Well, welcome back, and our luck has turned. I walked up underneath a large jackalberry tree, hoping to possibly find a leopard lying in there, and this massive Verreaux eagle owl flew out, and it flew out carrying a guinea fowl. Now, a guinea fowl, actually, they spend a lot of time on the ground, and that's what it's caught. It's a very large prey for a bird of this size, but they are known to take down prey as big as monkeys, these Verreaux eagles. And you may faintly be able to make out a few tiny little white spots on the feathers of the guinea fowl that are sticking up to the right of the eagle owl. Sadly, we don't want to try and get any closer in the fear that it will fly off. And I wonder when it caught the guinea fowl. They are nocturnal hunters, but like most predators, will take any easy opportunity that comes past them. So it may have caught it during the day. It didn't seem like much of the guinea fowl had been fed on. There was also another owl that took off out of this tree, and I'm not sure where it's landed. We managed to just keep an eye on this one with the kill. What will be interesting to see is it is quite exposed sitting on this marula tree. So I'm interested to give it a few minutes and wait and see if any smaller birds don't detect this owl and come and start giving it a hard time. I'm guessing that that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I can already hear the birds in the area beginning to alarm call, whether it's for the owl or the other owl that flew off and landed in another tree. I'm not too sure. But let's wait and see. Possibly a fork-tailed drongo will come onto the scene and start bomb diving the owl. It's not uncommon for the drongos to be quite feisty when it comes to taking on birds a lot bigger than themselves. Interesting to note the diversity in terms of prey that these birds can take down. It was just a few nights ago that we were watching one and it floated down and caught, in all likelihood, a bushveld gerbil, the small rodents, a regular rat-sized prey, I guess you could relate it to. But now it's cashed in on something far bigger. That will probably keep it fed for a few days. You'll notice how it's permanently swiveling its head from side to side, making sure that no other birds may swoop down and try and steal its prey. It is very cautious now that it's out in the open. But it does blend in very well. I mean, the camouflage and of its feathers make it look like an extension of that marula tree. Yes, some Aramark babblers have just landed in the tree next to it. And now the fun begins. And let's see if the babblers don't peck it on the head. You'll be surprised at how... Oh, here come the drongos and the other owl. The other owl's just flown into the tree to our left. I don't think Brian will be able to get an angle on it. Can you see it's in the kind of bottom right-hand branch there? You should be able to see it from where you are. Can you see the bird itself?
Yeah.
Okay. So some drongos flew past and the other owl landed in the tree. You can faintly make it out there. Oh, and now the other one's flown off with the kill. I told Brian to move the camera at the inopportune moment, and the babblers are going after the other owl. It's all oh, and now the other one's flown off with the kill. I told Brian to move the camera at the inopportune moment, and the babblers are going after the other owl. It's all happening here. I think what we're going to do is try and get a visual on the other owl, as that one has got more of a following of small birds that appear to be mobbing it. Are we going to be able to get through this way? I fear not. What we might do before we rush off, I know where the other bird is. I guess it could fly back into this large jackalberry tree that they initially flew out of. So let's rather wait here. Bright pink eyelids, but we may not be. So, And go and see if we can find the other owl quickly. Okay, we should just be a minute or two before we get there, but we do have to go around. It's quite thick bush here. And I want to try my best not to disturb the owls any more than what we have already. Oh, we're going to get a great view now. It may not be the closest view, but we'll be able to see the owl more clearly as well as its kill. I'm just going to stop here. It is far away, but we're going to be able to see the smaller birds pestering it from here. And to be specific, it's a helmeted guinea fowl. And what I'll do is find one in the book for you to show you exactly what it is that this owl has managed to catch. I'm guessing it won't be long before we see that owl fly back into the tree that the other owl is in. So after we've showed you this helmeted guinea fowl, which is the one on the right, I think Brian should get ready to try and track this bird's movements flying back into the tree that it's more comfortable in. It might be getting its breath back after carrying such heavy cargo around. You can hear all the Aramark babblers still babbling away in disgust. And it's a problem all the predators face out here. As soon as they are detected, everything in the vicinity knows of something that is not quite right. I can actually literally see the owl panting. So shame it is getting its breath back. And it is still quite a hot afternoon. So it'll probably be a few more minutes before it decides to fly back, or who knows, maybe it'll decide against flying back to the tree, knowing that it'll soon have the cover of darkness, where a lot of the birds that are now pestering it will be fast asleep. You can see a Cape turtle dove on the far left of the screen. It's also come in to investigate, but they tend to avoid getting into... Oh, you see, here's the fork-tailed drongo. That's the one we want. The fork-tailed drongo are one of the feistiest of the small birds. And I'm sure it won't be long until that little black bird flies up and pecks the owl on the back of the head. I'm almost willing to put money on it. And that's why you can see the owls giving it a proper stare down. Come on, drongo. Show everyone how tough and courageous you are. You've got a question through from Halal and Gerda asking if it's normal for owls to be hunting during the day, and we can't assume to take any opportunity that it's given, provided that it's easy. So any easy opportunity that comes about, night or day, full-bellied or starving, they will take on. It could be that the owl caught the guinea fowl last night and only has fed on a little bit throughout the course of the day, or there is a chance that it did catch it sometime today. We will never know, and it'll only ever be speculation. But one thing I have learned with predators is they take opportunities whenever they are there. I wonder how much longer it's going to continue panting for. I do feel a little bit guilty, but we didn't chase the owl unintentionally. And if and when you do sometimes by mistake chase off an animal from wherever it's hiding, it's not uncommon for animals to come across this in their daily life with other animals. So obviously we try and avoid it at all costs. But these things are natural. Another bird of prey could have come in and tried to steal this bird's kill. A whole host of other variables could have happened that would have displaced it from the tree that it was sitting in earlier. Is the fork-tailed drongo going to pluck up its courage? It's the small blackbird that's just flown to the bottom left of the owl. And as I mentioned before, any birds arrived, I expected one of them to arrive onto the scene as soon as the alarms went out, and it certainly didn't take long for that to happen. Well, the owl appears to have temporarily, and it's beginning to breathe quite deeply again, and that's how birds will thermoregulate. They'll pant, no different to a dog or a cat, as they lack the ability to sweat like we do. You can imagine sweating wouldn't go down too well with their feathers. And therefore panting is the way that it's going to cool down and also get its breath back. I think it's a combination of two things here. Thankfully it is cooling down every minute that passes by now, and it's turning into a wonderful calm evening here. Penny on Twitter, good afternoon, and thank you for sending your question through. Penny's brought up a good point that I should have touched on earlier, so thanks very much for asking this, Penny. We did see the other owl briefly, and Penny's asking whether this owl, the one we're looking at now, would share its kill with the other owl, and it certainly would. They form lifelong bonds, this Verreaux eagle. More than enough food to go around there with that guinea fowl. And I'm almost certain the two of them were feeding on it together. Well, I just read something interesting in my bird book that I didn't know. And they also feed on some of the daytime birds of prey. Herons, flamingos even, as well as monkeys, like I said, warthog piglets. So a very formidable predator, the Verreaux eagle owl. It's incredible how long these babblers have been babbling for now. You wonder if they're ever going to stop. And I think they've moved a bit closer to the other owl. And that's the one they're keeping an eye on. Well, I don't think too much is going to change here, folks. I think the excitement is over, and I think it's also fair that we leave this area and leave these owls in peace. But what a sighting it's been, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. It's something different. It's a first for me. It's the first time I've ever seen one of these owls with a guinea fowl kill, so always good to tick off a new and interesting sighting like this. And we're going to continue and see if we can find anything else that's interesting. A big thank you to Kathy. The official term used by ornithologists is gular flapping. So thank you very much. And great that we can all share facts and pieces of information about this beautiful wilderness together. So thank you for sharing that with us. And now we all know that birds do laugh when trying to keep cool. We're going to cut across to Marc and see what he's been up to. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you a little bit later.
And that's what I've stopped for over there. Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm back on Djuma now. And oh, what a beautiful, even the reflection in the water is fantastic. It is sunset, and it's time to take a breather. Sounds like you've had a fantastic sighting of owl eating guinea fowl. An owl kill. That is really unusual, and I'm sorry I missed it. But it sounds like an incredible sighting nonetheless. Maybe a few seconds of silence in this beautiful late afternoon light and the reflection in the water. Let's listen to the sounds of a Wednesday evening here in Africa. Sounds of not quite silence. The old weaver nests from the summer months. Monuments to a very busy and active tree. To a community of weavers that came, they brought it to life every time we were here in the summer. And they will be back next year. This year, next summer. Clearly been buffalo here today. We saw what looked like some dark shapes as we were coming down towards Treehouse Dam from Spam Road. We came in on Gowrie Main, and I would assume that they might have been buffalo that were sleeping here during the day, and they've headed off to graze because they don't need to be around the water anymore. We are going further on. I don't know where we're going. We'll get to a junction and decide which way we're going to go when we get there. I can't leave this alone. This is just too good to give up. Just such a beautiful scene. It sort of sets the scene for a leopard to come down and have a drink. Cue leopard. Cue leopard. Cue leopard. Like a broken record. Cue leopard. Lucy. Hello, Lucy. Lucy's in Montreal, in Canada. Isn't the Montreal Jazz Festival coming up? I'm sure it's someplace I'd love to be. Lucy wants to know if... I've just suddenly forgotten the question because I was thinking of the Jazz Festival. See, Montreal's triggered something in my brain. How rainy season? Do we get lots of days of rain, or is it just sporadic rainfall every now and then? Actually, Lucy, there isn't really a norm. Sometimes it can be. It's been different every year for the last decade or more. We haven't had a very typical rainy season. I suppose if we have to talk typical, we can talk about what it was like many years ago when it was pretty uniform. Every year we'd have late afternoon thunder showers, and then one or two really heavy rains, and then occasionally in the summer months, years worth of rain in one rainfall. It causes very localized flooding and a lot of erosion and a lot of problems, and it just doesn't really sink in as much as it should because it's just too much water at one time. But we have also had days of rain, days of grey skies where you get these waves of rain that will come in every few minutes. I can't say that there is any particular pattern to it, and I can't tell you if there is any particular way that it does rain. It's anything from a flash afternoon thunderstorm to late afternoon thunderstorms building up in the south and coming over, to a very broad cold front that brings in days of cloudy grey weather that will have intermittent rain. That is the wet season, and there could be days and days and days, even weeks, without even a drop of rain, as we've experienced the last few years. Nothing is for certain anymore. Nothing is assured. I think California going through one of its worst droughts in history is testament to that. We've been lucky down here in the Lowveld, in the Kruger region. We haven't had a serious drought for a long time. And it is something that Africa is quite notorious for, drought, or extremes, either drought or flooding. Very seldom a little balance in between. That's Africa for you. Let's go this way or that way. That way. Mostly barefoot, Cecile. That's where I am, I guess. Cecile is asking if I'm ever worried about stepping on something. I guess it is. I am careful about it, but then so with all other animals. I mean, like animals don't know, even the hoofed animals can step on things. I rely on being careful where I put my feet, but every now and then I do step on thorns. Can't be helped. It is a thorny kind of world out here. Thorns are developed to help plants protect themselves. Or thorns, some of the thorns you find on seeds are there so that they can actually stick in the feet of animals and be transported elsewhere. But there are thorns out here. Sometimes I stand on them. I think possibly you're asking about things like snakes and scorpions. I have had the odd scorpion incident. I'm very careful about stepping on snakes. At night, it is a little different, and especially in the summer months, you've got to be very careful because there are a lot of scorpions out. And it depends on where I am. Sometimes at night I'll put sandals on or shoes on hot, humid summer nights. I remember when I was in East Africa a couple of years ago, you couldn't take two paces without stepping on a scorpion. And it sounds like an exaggeration, but I promise you it's not an exaggeration. When you shone a scorpion light, every square foot had a scorpion. And if that sounds like an exaggeration, it's not. I promise you, that's how it was. But they were all burrowing scorpions, and they weren't really dangerous scorpions. But I was kind of compelled to have to wear shoes in the evenings. Also because I guess I was hosting guests at a camp, a very smart camp. And, well, it wouldn't have looked very good if I was dressed up very smart with long trousers and long sleeves and barefoot. But sometimes I wear shoes if the occasion calls for it. If I go and visit my optician or doctor, or I have my blood done. But I'm not afraid of it, I'm just aware of it. That's what it is. I'm aware that there are things that can hurt my feet or hurt me. You have to always have a trained armed guard. Yes, you do. And no, wild national park. It sometimes might not look it because of the way the animals behave towards the vehicles, but I promise you they behave a lot differently to humans on foot, and sometimes that is not a very positive response. the Sabi stand unless you're coming to a lodge, and if you're at a lodge, you can only go out on foot with an armed professional guide. And it really is for your own safety, no matter what you have in your heart and how much you love animals. The fact that you're coming from a different environment entirely, whether it's New York or even Johannesburg, doesn't matter what continent you're from, the fact that you're not from the bush, the fact that you are from a city, you're automatically a target. It's not. The one thing that one can be sure of is that you are likely to get yourself into trouble. And if you look at any incident throughout the history of safari operations throughout Africa, you will find that invariably where there has been an accident, it's been the human's fault, and it's been humans who think that they know better, and they think that they can either run faster or they can prevent themselves from having an unfortunate incident. Sadly, it doesn't go that way for them, because animals don't care where we come from or what we're doing or for a living or how much money we have in the bank or what cars we drive. Sorry, Mr. Marla. Animals don't care if we're president of a country, a queen, or an unemployed beggar on the streets. Animals will behave the same way to all human beings, and that's why for those of us who do walk out here in the bush, we have spent our lives and devoted our lives to understanding animal behavior and being able to read animals and to be able to prevent you, the visitor, from getting into a situation that's going to require some drastic action. And unfortunately, drastic action normally means having to do something to the animals. Actually, the bottom line is, it's not fair on the animals for people to go walking around where they don't know what they're doing, because if something happens, the animal's the one that's going to take the blame for it. And we would find, in fact, remind me, although I should be able to pick it up, but as those weaver nests start aging, they might fall from the tree, and the water's also receded from underneath the nest to some degree, and there's a good chance that you might find the weaver's nest underneath the tree. And what I can do, if one has fallen, I can actually open it up for you, and I can show you the construction, but you'll also notice that there will be a host of other creatures living inside these fresh green grasses that the weavers are going to want to weave their nest with. The other thing is that the weaving process is a very important process in the whole breeding cycle, because it's a combination of his weaving the nest, being a fresh nest, being attracted to the female. She's going to be in breeding cycle at the same time as he is, and so it's an encompassing thing. The whole breeding program for weavers, the whole breeding cycle, breeding season revolves around building the nests and showing them off to the females. They're not even going to be interested in an old nest. Plus the grasses are getting very brittle, and they're not likely to withstand the elements come summertime again, when there's very strong wind and storms that might lash through the bushveld and shake the trees. You'll find mud wasps, masonry wasps, potter wasps, maybe even some of the solitary bees, spiders, wood roaches, a whole host of insect life that are likely to live, and spiders, arthropods, that are likely to be living in those old nests. And it would be too much housekeeping for the weavers to have to come back and get rid of all the new tenants, because they've all got squatters' rights, you see. Possession is 9/10 of the law, so they say. this is Viet's favorite road.
Yes, indeed.
I've subjected you to a lot of bumps and things in Arathusa, so I thought I'd bring you on your favorite road. Scotty's going to see if the hyenas are home, so we're going to go over to Scott. And I'm going to carry on doing what I've been doing, and what I do best is trying to find animals for you. They're hiding. They've got to be here somewhere. I'll see you shortly. See you in a while.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are just moments away from arriving at the hyena den site. I'm hoping it's going to be active. There's no guarantee that it will be, but certainly worth a try. We were here yesterday morning, I believe, when we saw two adults full-bellied. We speculate that they may have stolen a kill from a leopard whose tracks we had in the area, and in that same area we then found hyena tracks dragging what looked to be like a carcass. It's in all likelihood the only thing a hyena would drag around, and that was a bit of speculation, but they certainly did have a good meal, and we haven't seen them since. Not looking too promising. No, hold on. We're in luck, kind of, as the little cubs are out, but there's no evidence of any adults here. So what we'll do is we'll stop for a very short moment, let you have a few glimpses, take a few screenshots, and then we will carry on. And the reason for that is when there are no adults at a den site, we don't want to create any abnormal distractions to the cubs, as if a predator was to arrive on the scene, we could then influence the outcome of the scenario. And that is the last thing we would want. They have become so used to us and our vehicle, and they often even come up to the vehicle inquisitively. And imagine if they were coming up to check us out and a leopard or a lion pounced on one of them, we would feel terrible. And for that reason, we will be heading off shortly. Great to get a quick glimpse of them, but I certainly don't want to be held responsible for anything happening to them, as do any of you. The chances of something happening are very slim, but that's besides the point. So without further ado, we shall leave these little cubs to their own devices and head off in search of something else. Possibly tomorrow morning we'll have more luck when the adults are around. Great to get a brief glimpse of them, but like I say, without their parents here, I don't think we should spend too long with them. Johnson, good evening, and thanks for sending your question through. Susie's interested to know the likelihood of a hyena smelling the kill that the owl had made, that guinea fowl kill, and would they be interested by it? And they certainly would. Any blood and any meat would attract a hyena. They would arrive under the tree, look up at the owl, and then probably realize that it's not worth spending too much time there. Although you never know, a desperate hyena may wait underneath, knowing that a few scraps will be dropped by the birds that it can then feed on. Leopard are no different, and would also certainly try and steal whatever they can of a kill. Predators will all steal from one another quite comfortably. So it certainly is like a possible likelihood, but in the same breath, the fact that the owl can fly just as we saw it, and fly with its kill, it would probably in all likelihood not end up in a very fruitful mission for either a hyena or a leopard. I think other large birds of prey would be the most likely culprits when it comes to stealing from those Verreaux eagle owls. Such a beautiful still evening here, and my favorite part of the day, certainly Archer. Well, I lie, it's not my favorite part of the day, but it's one of my favorite parts of the day. The early morning sunrises we're experiencing are really the refreshingly cool and calm weather. Smith, and thanks for this question. Julia is interested to know about the vulture that we saw on the sunrise drive. It was a white-backed vulture, and she would also like to know if it's rare to see them. And I wouldn't say it's rare to see vultures here, but we don't see them very often. Having said that, though, we saw about 40 or 50 of those vultures swooping down onto a buffalo kill that the Birmingham Coalition of Lions had finished feeding on. That was probably in December, though, so you can see them in large numbers, provided there are carcasses around for them to feed on. They fly huge distances, hundreds and hundreds of miles every day, potentially. Not every day, but in search of food they can fly hundreds of miles. And with their incredible eyesight, they can see other vultures beelining in a certain direction, and then they too join in, and it's just an avalanche, essentially, of vultures descending into one area. They can see up to apparently 3 miles another vulture in the sky, and with eyesight like that, it allows them to read into what's going on, and therefore all congregates on kills. So even though we may have no vultures here for days on end, if a large animal dies or is killed, they'll find out about it and all come in here. It's sadly just been a while since anything large has been killed on our property. But they've got to get their food somewhere, so every day they will be having opportunities to feed on old lion kills or on animals that have died of natural causes. Good evening to Bonnie, all the way in Pennsylvania. Bonnie is interested to know about a bird called a lilac-breasted roller. It's a very pretty bird. We did see one earlier on drive. And Bonnie's obviously realized that in the bird kingdom, it's quite often that the males have the brighter and prettier plumage than the females, but it's not always the case, and it's not the case with the lilac-breasted rollers. They both look very, very similar, or basically you cannot tell them apart. So they won the crested barbet, which we saw earlier as well, also a pretty and colourful bird. It's also very difficult to distinguish male between female, so it's not always the case, but quite often, yes, the males will be better looking than the ladies. So there's not too much longer to go, sadly, but there is enough time for us to make it to one last little spot that I would like to investigate. It's a waterhole called Treehouse Dam, and that is going to be our next destination. We'll probably be there in, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what we see along the way.
Bush baby nest coming up.
Okay, well, Brian's just suggested we go and check out an old bush baby nest. I think you found that with Marc, didn't you? So let's go and check that out. That's a good idea, Brian. Thank you. No rights or wrong. You just got to go on your gut feel and hope you get lucky somewhere along the way. It's this one or the next one. It's the next marula along. And won't it be wonderful if we do find a bush baby here? You don't think it's this one? Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%.
100%?
120%.
Okay, well, Brian's 120% sure it's the next marula. I was fairly certain it was that one. But I haven't seen it, so I could be wrong. Is this the one?
Yeah, this one.
That one in the middle there?
Yeah, the middle.
Okay.
Branch coming towards us.
Well, we'll stop and have a quick look. And the beauty about stopping and looking is that we may at some point hear some audio with animals that may lead us closer to some of the other animals that are harder to find.
Yeah, that hole. That's where they came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we early or maybe we late. Oh, who knows? Maybe the bush babies have just found an apartment and a marula elsewhere. Always great to try these things, though, and that's how we can, over time, slowly begin to guess on what these animals are doing, because that's what it is a lot of the time, guesswork. What a beautiful evening. Asking and has realized that we haven't seen too many jackal around, and I guess that's a fair observation. We don't see too many jackal, but they are here. We get predominantly side striped jackal in the Sabi Sands, which is interesting because they're a lot less common through Africa than the black-backed jackal. However, in this specific area, they are more common than the black-backs. We do get both here, and just seeing some interesting dropping on the road. I just want to make sure we know who's responsible for it. I may need to get out just to double check. Give me a second, please. But yeah, Don, we don't see many jackal, but that's just the way it is. They are here, but for various reasons they don't populate this area very highly. So I'm not sure exactly why, but it is a good observation. Okay, well, that looks to me about Africa as a continent and all the animals that live here. You do get species that can occur throughout Africa, but understandably their populations will vary greatly within different parts of Africa. So a lot simply just depends on the habitats, and obviously the habitat dictates many other variables, the amounts of other large predators here, the amount of potential den sites for jackals, the competition to jackals. Here it would be fair to say there's a lot of competition and a lot of animals that can kill jackal. It wasn't long ago, and I'm not sure if Brent mentioned this to all of you, but they had just closed down and were no longer live, sitting with, I think it was quarantine, and Brian was actually filming. Well, on the back, they weren't filming at this stage, they were just enjoying some time off after the drive, and out of nowhere a hyena came running, chasing a side-striped jackal, and the poor side-striped jackal ran straight into quarantine, and quarantine swatted him once on the back, and his back was broken, and then the hyena finished it off and fed on it. So that's an example of the competition they face out here, and there are a lot of leopards, a lot of lion, and a lot of hyena. Also a lot of thick vegetation as far as I'm aware, and in my history with jackal and viewing jackal, they tend to like open areas, short grass and open plains, and there's not much of that here. So I guess that could be a contributing factor to why we don't see too many around.
Was there any
Djuma down this road? His tracks disappeared somewhere here down into the riverbed, and we carried on driving a few meters. I was with Stefan, and we spotted him lying underneath some trees over to our right, and he had a warthog kill under there. And I often find myself thinking back to the different sightings that we've had on many of these roads. Almost all of these roads, I guess, have got their own special memories of various sightings we've been able to share with you along the way. Anyway, enough of memories, and let's go and see what's happening right now with Marc. We'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Good evening all. Night has fallen since I spoke to you a few minutes ago. Put the lights on and I'm using a spotlight trying to find some eyes and trying to find something nocturnal for you. We are at Twin Dams. I've been doing a few loops, figures of 8 from Treehouse Dam, trying to find something, anything that moves. I need to put something on. There, just stop quickly and look at this beautiful afterglow. And the moon. Excuse me a sec, I just want to listen to the radio.
grey hair? Grey hair.
Oh, grey hair in a treehouse. Thanks, Scott. Did you get the moon? And Venus. And we are now about the third or fourth day of our new moon, so we have a waxing crescent moon. When you see a moon in the evening, if you see a moon on the horizon close to the sun after sunset, you know that it's waxing. You will never get a waning moon where the sun is setting. You'll only get a waning moon where the sun is rising. And it was probably new moon about 3 nights ago, I'd say. About 3 nights ago, yeah. and big bright planet of Venus. If we take a line from the moon to Venus, that is the plane of the ecliptic. It's the celestial equator, as it were. And if you follow that line, it's actually lying quite low in the northern sky right now as we get into winter. If we follow that line more or less up to Jupiter, which is also higher up in the sky, that is, all of our planets and our sun and our moon are on that plane, are on that line, as it were. There's Jupiter just coming to the top of your screen now. It's not exactly aligned with the plane of the ecliptic, but that line runs right through where those three celestial bodies are. And it's the only place you'll see planets, or the sun or the moon, within varying degrees, of course. The celestial equator. From Lika in the Philippines, sent in by David. Thank you. Nice to have someone from the Philippines, and welcome aboard our drive. Gosh, it must be quite late at night for you in the Philippines. You're middle of the night there, or early morning even. And Lake is asking if cheetah are active at night. Sometimes they are, generally not. You see, cheetah because they have to run so fast, not really a good idea to be running at full speed through the bushveld in the middle of the night. So we'll find that cheetah might be active on full moon. In this terrain, cheetah would not definitely not be hunting. The other thing about cheetah being active at night is that the other predators, lion, leopard, and hyena, and jack, in this terrain, cheetah would not definitely not be hunting. The other thing about cheetah being active at night is that the other predators, lion, leopard, and hyena, and jackal, are all active at night, and because they're all active at night, the cheetah are likely to try and find a hiding spot and sleep for the night. If they were to make a kill, they'd be pretty surely assured that something's going to find them by the sound of the kill, and they're less likely to be disturbed during the day, although it has happened. I've seen even vultures chasing cheetah off of their kill. There are a number of reasons why it's not conducive for cheetah to hunt at night, but I have seen them active on full moons, out in open, short grasslands, where it's almost like a playing field, like the Serengeti or the Masai Mara. Were up on Torchwood and a dam up on Buffelshoek, or they were at a dam on Torchwood or something. I don't know the details. Unfortunately, I don't speak to the other guides, so it's very difficult to pick up the snippets of information that get sent on the radio. So it's, I simply don't know. And we won't know until we find the kahumas and we find the young male and we see what happens in the coming days. So there's no cause for speculation or rumors or people to get worried. This is unfortunately the way things work. When animals are not here on Djuma, we tend not to know what's going on with them. Sometimes the rangers from the other lodges post on their blogs, and sometimes you find things online. But I think, given current circumstances, our viewers are more likely to find out what's going on than I am. So I just simply can't get online at the moment. So I know that the Matimbas, because male being chased, I haven't heard anything about there being a fight. I only know that at some point, one of the vehicles, one of the landowners saw the young male on his own. We can't, there's a bush baby. We can't, I was talking too loud. And they're so sensitive, their hearing is very acute. There, it's on the other side of that tree. You might be able to get to see it. So all we know is that it was not with it, it had left the pride. But no, see, even then, I'm using the wrong word. It walked away. Whether it was chased away or whether it is voluntarily, temporarily moving in a different direction, we have no idea of knowing. The kahumas haven't been found today as far as I know, so there's no update from today. And of course we will keep you posted if we get any news in the coming days, or hopefully they'll even come back to Djuma and we might be able to see for ourselves. I'm just going to take the light off for a minute and sit quietly. There was a bush baby around this tree and I think it's still there. And I know you can hardly see anything without the light on it. But sadly it's most likely going to stay hidden. They can be very shy. Sorry about the light, bush baby. Gotta go. Maholi. Singalensis Maholi. Is a scientific name. That the tree might have bush babies living in it. watching that waterbuck follow the impala down towards the dam. They just happened to be walking in that perfect line that they just followed that gap in the trees. I'm positive that tomorrow is going to be a more productive day. Luckily, you can all join us again tomorrow morning, 6:30 Central African time, and you can interact with us when we're on drive in the morning. Questions at WildEarth.tv or hashtag Safari Live, and we'll try and get back to you to the best of our knowledge in real time. Wonderful thing about live safari drives. My name is Marc, and Viv has been with me on camera. I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks for the questions that have been sent in this afternoon. And a little bit of information for me to look up the red spots, for example. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. Unless I find something this evening on the way home. So from me, from us, from Jigger, make it love. Love you lot.
Welcome back. And no major updates. Brian and I stopped for about 5 minutes and just listened, hoping to hear something interesting. But all we heard was silence, and we've now carried on using the spotlight to sweep the surrounding area, up in the trees, on the ground. The great thing about the spotlights is that you can be very quick and not actually spend a long time in one area, because all you're looking for is the reflection of the eyes of the animals, and they stand out very brightly. So it may appear that I'm almost shining haphazardly from side to side, but you have to shine quite quickly in order to be able to cover the vegetation on both sides of the road as we're going. I believe you've been having a great time with Marc, talking about the moon and Venus, and isn't it such a beautiful new moon at the moment? As great as it is when there's no moon up in our sky, because the star viewing is really great. It's equally... Oh, what have we got here? We've got something interesting on the road. Looks like it could be a genet. And it's a little white-tailed mongoose, and it's probably heading off to the quarantine clearings, so we'll follow it there. Or is it going to duck off into the long grass before that? It's just on the side of the road now. And I'm sure it's actually the same one. We've been seeing one quite regularly at the quarantine clearings. Oh, I'm just going to stop for a second. There's an awesome duck that's calling. You may hear it very faintly. It's the call of a white-faced whistling duck. It's one of my favorite calls. Anyway, we've now given the mongoose a little bit of time to reach the clearings. And as I've said, it is getting quite used to us. Certain we're going to get a glimpse of it crossing this road here, so let's just wait a second and see. It's sadly currently still in the long grass, and you can just see sadly, my predictions of it reaching the clearings was not quite right, and it seems like that will therefore be the last animal seen on today's sunset drive. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly did. A highlight for me was no doubtedly the Verreaux eagle owl with that guinea fowl kill. What a surprise, walking under a tree thinking I might find a leopard, and lo and behold, an owl flies off with a massive kill. So that was a first for me to see an owl with a kill like that, and really exciting stuff. Already looking forward to tomorrow's safari. Thanks so much for all of you, the viewers, for jumping on board our vehicles on these drives, and thanks to Brian and Tara and Nikki in the final control. We'll see you all tomorrow morning for the next adventure.